What if Ned Stark never told Robert Baratheon about Cersei's children? What if, instead of treating her as an enemy, he made a deal, turning the Lioness of the Rock into an unlikely ally? Because in that one moment, everything could have changed. Cersei Lannister spared by Ned Stark, not out of weakness, but strategy. Yeah, that could have shattered the Seven Kingdoms. And here's where it gets even crazier. Ned didn't just let her walk away. He proposed something she never expected. Protection. A way out. A promise that her children could live, if she helped bring down the real threat, the rot spreading through the throne itself. But wait, you're not ready for what happens when Tywin finds out, because that man doesn't forgive betrayal, even from his daughter. Let's go back. It starts in the Red Keep in that quiet garden. Cersei had just confessed. Her children were Jaime's. Ned stood there, jaw clenched, fists tight, honor like a sword at his throat. This was the moment. In the real world, he warned her, told her to run, gave her time, and she used it to destroy him. But not here. Not in this version of the story. This time Ned doesn't threaten her. He listens. For once the wolf stays still. Maybe it's the way she flinched when she mentioned her children. Maybe it's the exhaustion in her voice. Layered over poison, yes, but still human. Or maybe it's that damn dream he had the night before. Lyanna whispering something he couldn't hear, over and over. Something about a choice, about betrayal, about mercy. So instead of threatening her, Ned speaks quietly. They're still children. They didn't choose any of this. Cersei stiffens, not understanding.
What are you saying?
I'm saying it doesn't have to end in blood. She stares at him like he's mad, like he's mocking her. But there's no irony in his face, no trap. Just the heavy, unbearable truth of it. Cersei knows he should have turned her in already. Told Robert everything, let the whole kingdom implode. But he hasn't. And that scares her more than any threat ever could. That night she doesn't sleep. Neither does Ned. They're from different worlds. She's fire and ambition, he's frost and duty. But now they're both sitting on a blade's edge. What they decide next will burn kingdoms, or save them. The offer Ned makes is brutal in its honesty. Help me keep the kingdom stable. I won't expose your children's truth, not yet. But you must help me stop the chaos from spreading. He doesn't ask her to confess. He doesn't ask her to leave. He asks her to act, strategically, to play the game with him. It's the first time anyone's spoken to Cersei like a chess master, not a pawn. And damn it, it works, she's no fool. She knows Robert's days are numbered, his belly too bloated with wine, his mind too dulled by years of false glory. She also knows Renly is sniffing power. Littlefinger is always watching. Varys is already spinning webs. If Ned truly wants peace, she can help him. But not for free. I want safety for my children, she says. No one touches them, ever. Ned nods. Swear to keep the peace. Swear to protect the realm, not your own ambitions. And I'll swear the same. It's the most unnatural alliance Westeros has ever seen. Ice and gold. But for now it holds. Robert returns from his hunt days later, wounded and dying. In the original tale, chaos erupts. False wills, betrayals, Littlefinger's knives. But not this time. Ned presents the king's dying wishes cleanly. Stannis will be named heir as Robert intended. No edited letter. No hesitation. The realm watches as the wolves and lions stand side by side. And for a moment, just one sliver of a moment. Everyone believes in the illusion of stability, but illusions don't last in Westeros. Renly doesn't accept the outcome. Neither does Littlefinger. Varys is suspicious. Tywin knows. The moment word reaches him that Cersei has aligned with Ned Stark, he sends ravens. Demands her return to Casterly Rock. Demands explanation. And worse, he starts moving gold. Men's strategy, Cersei can feel the walls closing in. She's made herself a target from all sides. The Tyrells no longer trust her. Jaime is furious. Joffrey is, well, still Joffrey, and increasingly unstable. Meanwhile, Ned is trying to manage Stannis. The new king by name, but cold and brutal by nature. Stannis doesn't care about alliances. He doesn't trust Cersei. He barely tolerates Ned. He wants war with the Lannisters, all of them. And now Ned is stuck in the middle of a brewing storm. He chose mercy over justice. And now the realm sits on a blade because of it. But here's where it gets insane. Cersei starts playing her new role too well. She's advising Ned, feeding him information, slowing down her father's plans from the inside. Even offering Olenna a new marriage pact between House Stark and House Tyrell to stabilize the realm. And it starts to work. People begin to whisper. Cersei the peacemaker, Ned Stark the king's hand who actually holds the realm together. But someone isn't happy about it. Joffrey the boy wants power. He wants blood. And he wants to be king. One night, while Ned is in the small council chamber, a shadowy hand slips a note beneath his door. It's unsigned. Just 6 words. He plans to kill you tomorrow. Ned burns the note after reading it, but the chill remains. He knows who it's about. Joffrey is not patient. He's not subtle. And Cersei, she's not in control of him anymore. The next morning, Ned doesn't go to the council meeting. He goes straight to the Red Keep unannounced. The guards move to block him, but Ser Barristan lets him through. Inside, he finds Joffrey on the Iron Throne smirking, surrounded by gold cloaks. "You're early, Lord Stark," Joffrey sneers. Ned keeps his voice steady. "You've no right to sit that throne. I am the king. No, you are a boy playing with swords." The room goes silent. But before the confrontation escalates, Cersei walks in. Alone. No guards. No crown, just her presence, radiant, dangerous, and cold. "Get down," she says to Joffrey. Quiet, controlled. He doesn't move. Now. And for a second, even Joffrey hesitates. Then snarls. "He's trying to steal my crown. He's turning you against me." Cersei's voice breaks just slightly. "I did everything for you. And look what you've become." He lunges for a sword, but the Kingsguard blocks him. And that's when Cersei does something no one expects. She slaps him, hard. The room gasps. Joffrey stumbles back, blinking. Cersei turns to Ned. "You were right. Mercy doesn't always make monsters smaller. Sometimes it lets them grow." Ned steps forward. "We need to move now, before the realm tears itself apart." Outside the throne room, chaos is already brewing. Rumors fly about a coup, about betrayal, about civil war. Tywin's army is on the move. Stannis prepares his fleet. Renly gathers support from Highgarden. The game has changed and no one knows the new rules. And somewhere in the shadows, Littlefinger smiles. Because he thrives on confusion, on chaos, on broken alliances. And Cersei's choice, to spare Ned, to trust Ned, may have just given him the perfect storm. But here's what no one sees coming. Cersei has another secret. One she's kept even from Jaime. Even from Varys, and it could burn the world down before anyone can stop it. From Varys, and it could burn the world down before anyone can stop it. The slap still echoed in the marble chamber, long after Cersei turned her back on Joffrey. He stood frozen, lips trembling, face flushed. Not with shame, but the kind of rage that curdled into something deeper. Something dangerous. Cersei had humiliated him. In front of the Kingsguard. In front of Ned Stark, in front of power. And Joffrey would not forget it. Outside, King's Landing was already buzzing with the scent of war. Whispers swirled like wildfire in Flea Bottom. Some said Ned Stark had seized the throne. Others believed Cersei had imprisoned her own son. Everyone had their own version, and none of them were right. But it didn't matter. Perception ruled in Westeros, and perception was unraveling. Ned walked beside Cersei through the shadowed hallways of the Red Keep, every step tight with the weight of what they'd just done. She said nothing. Not a word. Her face was carved in ice. But he could feel it, the fury, the betrayal, the mother in her that had just broken something permanent. "You'll have to choose soon," he said, "between the realm and your son." She stopped walking. "Don't pretend you care about him. I care about what he might become." A beat passed. And then, he's already become it. She moved on faster now. Like walking would help her outrun the consequences. Back in the Tower of the Hand, Ned met with Maester Pycelle, Ser Barristan, and a visibly rattled Varys. Stannis had sent word. He was claiming the throne, and already moving ships from Dragonstone. Renly, according to Varys, had vanished from the capital days earlier, riding west with Loras Tyrell and a small band of knights. "The kingdom is splintering," Pycelle muttered. "Too many claimants, too many secrets, and not enough kings," Ned said grimly. But that wasn't entirely true. There was still a king. A child, yes. A spoiled, dangerous, unstable child, but crowned regardless. And even worse, legitimate only in the eyes of those who didn't know the truth. That truth, the one Ned had once tried to bury under honor and silence, was now a curse burning through the cracks of the realm. He thought of Robb, of Sansa, of Arya. He couldn't afford another mistake. Meanwhile, Cersei was alone with Joffrey. The boy sat on a cushioned bench, petulant, silent. When she finally spoke, it wasn't as a queen. It was as a mother trying to find her son before he disappeared entirely. "You embarrassed yourself. You embarrassed me. I protected you. You betrayed me." His voice shook, high and venomous. Cersei stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "You're still my son, but you are not ready to be king, not now. Not with Tywin breathing fire from the west and Baratheons sharpening their blades." Joffrey looked up, his eyes full of hatred and hunger. "Then who is? Ned Stark? You?" She didn't answer, because the truth was too dangerous to say out loud. At that very moment, in a hidden room beneath Baelor's sept, Littlefinger was sitting across from Peter Baelish. Wait, that's a lie. Littlefinger wasn't sitting across from himself, but he was watching the city fold exactly the way he wanted, with his usual smirk. He had already met with the Gold Cloaks. Half their loyalty bought, the rest waiting for the wind to shift. "Chaos," he said softly, "is such a gracious thing. It asks for nothing and takes everything." Beside him, a scroll burned in a lantern's flame. It was from Tywin, sealed, already read, already used. Tywin was not pleased with Cersei's alliance with Ned, but he would not break the realm to scold a daughter. He would, however, punish her in the only way he knew how, Jaime. The Kingslayer had been marching back to King's Landing in secret, at Tywin's command. The plan: remove Cersei, install Joffrey by force, destroy Ned Stark publicly, maintain Lannister image through fire and steel. But Tywin's sword wasn't the only one unsheathed now. Up in the north, Robb Stark had received word of unrest. Not war, not yet, just tension. His father still ruled his hand, Sansa was still safe in the capital. Arya's letters were strange but alive. No call for banners yet. But the wolves were restless. Grey wind howled at night for no reason. And Robb, he felt it. Something was coming. Back in King's Landing, Ned and Cersei met one final time before the fire started. They stood at the edge of the map room, looking down at the painted table that had once guided Targaryen conquest. Now it was stained with wine, sweat, and panic. "Your father will move soon," Ned said. "He already has." "Jaime, 3 days away." "Maybe 2. Ned closed his eyes. "Then we have no time. I'll delay him. I'll try. But he doesn't listen to me anymore. I don't need him to listen. I need him to hesitate," Cersei smirked. "You'd have made a good Lannister, you know. If only you'd been born wrong. And you'd have made a decent Stark," Ned replied. "If only you weren't." They didn't laugh. There was no humor left in their game. That night, Cersei sent Varys with a message to the Riverlands, a quiet call for support. Not to Tywin, but to Edmure, a long-forgotten alliance, a favor owed. Meanwhile, Ned sent word to Stannis, not asking for war. Not yet, but for proof. He needed legitimacy. Something to shake the realm awake before Tywin shattered it, but it was already too late. At dawn, the city gates opened. Jaime rode in, gold armor gleaming, 1,000 Lannister men behind him. The gold cloaks didn't stop him. Some even saluted. Inside the Red Keep, Cersei watched from her window. One hand clutched a goblet. The other shook. In the throne room, Joffrey was already barking orders. "I am king. Ned Stark will kneel today or die." Cersei entered the room with her crown tilted slightly, like it was slipping. "No," she said. "You're going to do nothing." "I don't need you anymore," he hissed. "Father's here now." And that's when Cersei realized it. She'd lost. Not the war. Not the city. Her son, he was gone, and now she had to decide what came next. She turned to the guards. "Take him to his chambers." "He's not to leave." They hesitated, and then Jaime entered. Steel met silence. He looked at Cersei, looked at Joffrey, looked at Ned and said, "I didn't ride here to rescue a child with a crown." That's when it all shattered. Cersei screamed, Joffrey lunged again, Ned drew steel. Jaime didn't. He let it all fall apart, because sometimes letting something burn is the only way to start over. But no one, not Ned, not Cersei, not even Littlefinger, was prepared for who stepped forward next. It wasn't Stannis, it wasn't Renly, it wasn't even Robb Stark. It was Arya, and the blade in her hand wasn't for show. Wasn't for show. Arya had never looked more like Lyanna, not just in her wild, defiant eyes, but in the way she moved. Quick, certain, absolutely unafraid of the court, the crown, or the chaos around her. She stood there in the throne room of the Red Keep, her small hand wrapped around the hilt of a thin blade. Needle. No one had seen her come in. Not Cersei, not Joffrey, not Jaime, not even Ned, but she was there. And the look in her eyes said one thing. She wasn't leaving without blood. Joffrey laughed first. "Oh, look! The wolf girl thinks she's a killer." But Arya didn't move, and then Ned finally spoke, his voice low, nearly shaking. "Arya, no," she didn't blink. "He threatened Sansa twice." The tension in the room was coiled like a crossbow string. Jaime's fingers hovered near his sword, but even he could see it. This wasn't some foolish child tantrum. This was Starkfire, pure and sharp. Cersei stepped forward, hands out, voice steady. "Arya, put the blade down. We can talk about this." Arya tilted her head, eyes never leaving Joffrey. "Did you talk to him before he had Micah hunted? Did you talk to him before he told the guards to beat Sansa's direwolf to death?" No one answered. She didn't wait. In one breath she moved, not toward Joffrey but past him. The blade flashed, straight to the Kingsguard behind the throne. Sir Meryn Trant, the man who'd once struck Sansa across the face, the man who smiled too easily at cruelty. Arya's blade went into his thigh, fast and deep. He screamed. Gold cloaks surged forward. Cersei screamed Arya's name. Ned moved. Jaime lunged, and in that chaos the throne room split. Arya vanished into the columns. Meryn was dragged out, blood trailing behind him. Joffrey had lost all color in his face, sputtering with rage, too stunned to speak. And Cersei. She stood there, watching her alliance die right in front of her, because the wolf pack was waking up. Hours later, Arya was still missing. The gold cloaks searched every shadow. Varys whispered to no one. Littlefinger laughed quietly in his chambers. And Ned. Ned was drowning in choices. He hadn't called the banners yet. He hadn't summoned Robb, but it was close now. If Arya was caught, if she was executed by royal decree, then everything would collapse. There'd be no alliance, no peace. Just wolf against lion. Again. Jaime found him that night, standing over the courtyard where Ned had once trained Arya. "She's fast," Jaime said. "Faster than I thought." Ned didn't turn. "You're not here to compliment her." "No, I'm here to tell you something you already know." A pause. "You can't save everyone. Not your daughter. Not my sister. Not this realm." Ned finally turned to face him. "Then why are you here?" Jaime smirked. "Because for once I'm not entirely sure whose side I'm on. And just like that, the most dangerous man in the Seven Kingdoms was neutral." For now, meanwhile, Cersei was unraveling. Her son hated her. Her father was coming to remove her. Her brother had stopped following orders. And Ned Stark, the man she'd risked everything to trust, was slipping away. The alliance, once fragile but real, was breaking apart under the weight of too many secrets. And then came the worst news. Stannis had landed, black sails on the horizon, Baratheon sigils snapping in the wind. Thousands of soldiers pouring onto the shores of Blackwater Bay. No more waiting, no more letters. The true claim to the throne had come to collect. And behind Stannis came Melisandre, red-robed, eyes burning. Whispering about king's blood and rightful rule. The city panicked. The faith grew quiet. Even Varys seemed rattled. Ned met Stannis on the ramparts. The older Baratheon was colder than the stones beneath them. "You should have called me sooner. You'd have started a war. I'm starting one now. You still can stop it." Stannis stared at him, unblinking. "Cersei's children are bastards. The throne is mine. And if we can hold the realm together without blood, blood is what makes a realm." And with that the siege began, not with fire, not with arrows, but with fear. Stannis didn't attack the city directly. He starved it, cut off trade, blocked the gates, sent letters to the houses still unsure of where to stand. Inside, the people turned desperate. Rioters broke into food stores. Gold cloaks turned on each other. The faith militant rose again, and Joffrey, he locked himself in the throne room, refused to speak to anyone but Pycelle. He was king, and he was trapped. Cersei stood at the edge of her bedchamber, staring at a goblet of wine. She hadn't touched it in days, not since she started hearing the rumors that Stannis had a shadow, that he carried fire in his hands, that he would burn her children alive. She didn't believe in gods. But she believed in power. And power was shifting fast. Ned called one final council, Jaime, Cersei, Varys, Ser Davos speaking for Stannis. Even Littlefinger showed up, smiling like a man with nothing to lose. I have a solution, Ned said. Everyone leaned in, and what he said next shook the room. Sansa will marry Stannis' daughter, a union of North and South. He claims the throne, but Cersei remains in court as regent to protect her children. We remove Joffrey from succession, quietly. Silence. Cersei's hands shook. Do that, she said, and I'll kill him myself. Ned stared at her. Your son will destroy the realm. He's already begun, and Jaime said it first. Let him go. He's no king. Cersei looked from her brother to Ned, to the weight of everything she'd tried to build, and she nodded, not because she agreed, but because she had no choice. Later that night, Arya returned. She slipped into her father's chamber like smoke. Blood on her sleeve, dust in her hair. Ned didn't ask what she'd done. He only said, "You'll have to leave soon." "I know." "Where will you go?" She didn't answer, but her eyes said everything, to war, to vengeance, to survival. And as dawn broke over the Red Keep, the game entered its final phase. One king outside the gates, one boy inside them, one wolf trying to hold it all together, and one lioness, sharpening her claws again, because no matter what deal she made, Cersei Lannister was never anyone's ally for long. There was never anyone's ally for long. The bells tolled at sunset, low and slow, not for death, but for a silent rebellion. They rang not for a fallen king, but for one about to fall. The people of King's Landing didn't yet know it, but something had already shifted. Behind the walls of the Red Keep, a king had been sentenced, not by sword, not by rebellion, but by quiet consent. Joffrey Baratheon, the boy king, would soon be removed, not through blood, not yet, but through power, and the one who agreed to it was his own mother. Cersei stared at the flame in her chambers like it might tell her what came next. She had made her choice, given her silence. Handed Ned the dagger, metaphorically, and told him to do what had to be done. But now she couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe. The silence of betrayal rang louder than any truth. Jaime stood in the shadows near the window. He hadn't spoken much since the council. He'd always sworn to protect his brother, and now he was standing by as that brother lost everything. His voice was quiet but heavy. "Do you love him, Cersei?" She didn't look away from the fire. "He's my son." That wasn't the question. Her jaw tightened. "He's all that's left of my power." That was the real answer. Outside, Ned stood at the top of the Tower of the Hand, eyes scanning the harbor. Black sails as far as he could see. Stannis had tightened his grip. But he hadn't attacked. He was waiting for the crown to be handed over, waiting for someone to blink, and Ned was about to. He sent Sansa away that night quietly. No grand farewell, just a handful of guards and a single order: ride north. Don't look back. Sansa didn't argue. She'd seen too much. She was no longer the girl who'd sung songs about golden-haired knights and courtly love. Her dreams had been crushed under Joffrey's heel. And maybe, just maybe, Arya had gotten to him first. At the gate, she turned once, looking back toward the Red Keep, toward the lion's den she was escaping. Then she rode, and never looked back. Arya watched from the shadows. She didn't go with her sister. Not yet. She had her own list, and her own plans. The next morning, the Red Keep was quiet. No screams, no banners. Just a closed door and a locked throne room. Ned entered with Ser Barristan. No one else. Joffrey sat on the Iron Throne like a child caught in his father's armor. Too large, too heavy, too sharp. He glared at them. "You think you can just take it from me?" Ned didn't answer right away. "Just walk to the base of the steps. You never earned it. I am the king." "No, you're a lie. And even lies have to end." Joffrey stood, his hands shaking. "I'll have your head." "You already tried." For a moment, Joffrey's mouth opened, then closed, confused, angry, cornered. Then he screamed, "Guards!" No one came. Not a single step echoed down the hall. Cersei had made sure of that. Ned took a step closer. "You won't be harmed. Not if you leave the city today. You'll live in exile with guards. But the throne is no longer yours. And who takes it? That miserable, sour Stannis. You think the people will love him?" "They won't love anyone," Ned said. "But they will survive him." Joffrey's lip curled. "So I hope he kills you all," and then he spat. At the throne. At Ned. At the legacy of kings he'd never belonged to. But he didn't resist. Not when the guards came. Not when the doors closed. And not when they led him away through a hidden passage. Never to return to the throne room again. That night, Ned stood before the small council and declared it official. Joffrey Baratheon has been removed. Stannis Baratheon is the rightful heir and shall be crowned. There were no cheers, just nods, tight, reluctant, exhausted, but it was done. At dawn, the bells rang again, faster this time, high and shrill. Stannis had entered the city, and he didn't come alone. At his side walked Melisandre, the Red Woman, the shadow of fire. Her eyes locked with Ned's from across the courtyard, and for the first time in years, Ned felt something old rise in his chest. Fear Melisandre said nothing. Not that day, not that night. But the next morning, pyres burned in the square. Small ones, but loud. Smoke twisted into the sky and the people gathered. She spoke of cleansing, of sacrifice, of the Lord of Light, and Ned realized he had stopped one tyrant, only to give the crown to another. In the shadows, Varys whispered, "You traded lions for fire, and fire does not negotiate." But it was too late to turn back. Cersei hadn't left the city. She remained in her chambers, a queen without a crown. Tywin hadn't responded to her letters. Jaime had stopped speaking altogether. And Joffrey, somewhere east of the city, was growing more vengeful with every step away from his throne. She was trapped in the cage she'd once built for others. And Arya. She disappeared again, gone from the castle, gone from the walls. Some said she'd fled with a group of merchants. Others believed she'd joined Stannis' army as a boy. But Ned knew better. His daughter had no allegiance now, only a blade. And a name. Back in the Red Keep, Melisandre made her first demand. Gendry, she said. The bastard. He must die, Ned said no. Stannis hesitated. But Melisandre pressed. The Lord of Light demands the king's blood. And that's when the line reappeared. Clear. Hard. Inescapable. Ned Stark had tried to save the realm with mercy. With strategy. With quiet power. But now, standing face to face with fire and prophecy, he realized mercy has limits and fire consumes everything. Has limits and fire consumes everything. Gendry had never asked for anything. Not a name, not a title, not even a father. He lived quietly in the forges of King's Landing, hammering steel like it was the only thing that made sense in a world so full of lies. But now the truth had found him, and it was wearing red. Melisandre's eyes were fixed on him as if she were looking through him, at the fire in his blood, the magic in his veins. He didn't understand. He only knew he was afraid, not of the flames, but of the woman smiling beside them. Ned Stark had never feared magic, but he did fear belief, the kind that burned books, crushed cities, and smiled while doing it. Melisandre believed in her god, and she believed that Gendry, Robert's bastard, was the fuel her fire needed. Stannis didn't flinch. Not once. He'd taken the throne with quiet certainty, and now he ruled as coldly as he had promised. He told Ned, "The boy carries the king's blood. His death is necessary." Ned didn't respond right away. He just looked at Stannis like a man staring at a storm he once thought he could outrun. "He's a child," Ned said. "He's a weapon," Melisandre corrected, unsharpened. "But dangerous, if not used. He will be used by someone else." "The Lord of Light showed me," Ned shook his head. "You said the same thing about Joffrey, about Renly, about Edric's storm. How many children must you burn before your god is satisfied?" Stannis' voice was ice. "Enough. This is not up for debate, but it was." Ned left the chamber without another word. And that night he moved Gendry, not with a sword, not with force, with gold, with shadows, with silence. Varys handled the rest. By morning, Gendry was gone, vanished into the Riverlands. Melisandre screamed of betrayal. Stannis stared through Ned like he was already imagining his death. But the boy was safe, for now Cersei watched it all from her tower. She hadn't spoken to Ned since Joffrey was exiled. There were no words left between them. Only weight, regret, power. But when she saw Melisandre's flames light up the square, she realized something darker had taken root. She thought she could manage Ned. She thought she could manipulate her son. But this new fire, this god, it obeyed no logic, no coin, no fear, and for the first time in her life, Cersei saw what it looked like when she was powerless. She sent a letter to Jaime, who had gone north to rejoin Tywin. The message was short. They replaced the lion with fire. "It's eating everything. Come back." Or burn, Jaime didn't reply, because he never received the letter. Tywin did, and Tywin had already decided what came next. Ned's position grew weaker by the day. The city feared Stannis. The lords whispered that he ruled through Melisandre's voice. The pyres continued, quiet at first, then louder. Symbols, justice, cleansing. One night a man was burned for speaking the name R'hllor in jest. Another night, a septon disappeared. And one morning, a raven landed at the Tower of the Hand. From Riverrun. She wrote of Robb of the North, of the Riverlands. They were watching the south with growing unease. The Freys were nervous. The Boltons distant. If another war broke, the North would not stay still. Ned sent one line in return. Hold watch, wait, I'll come for you soon. But even he knew. It was a lie. The war wasn't coming. It was already here. Arya returned again, this time in the cloak of a kitchen boy. She slipped into Ned's quarters like a ghost. He didn't startle. He just looked at her. She had blood on her sleeve again, and something colder in her eyes. "You've been killing," he said. She nodded. He waited a long time. "How many?" Enough to make a dent. He didn't ask who. He didn't want to know. She sat across from him like a stranger. "They're burning people now." "I know. Why aren't you stopping it?" "I'm trying." She leaned forward. "You once told me the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword." "I remember." She looked disappointed. Not angry, just disappointed. "You gave them a king," she said. "But you forgot to make him human." Then she left again. Ned didn't sleep that night because she was right. The next day he went to Stannis. No guards. No warnings. "Just storm and steel. I want her gone," Ned said. "Who?" "The Red Woman." Stannis didn't blink. "She saved my life. She gave me victory. She's unmaking everything. She is the fire that purifies. No, she's the fire that devours." And then Stannis said the words that sealed it. "Then you are no longer needed." By nightfall, Ned was removed as Hand quietly, without honor. Without ceremony, he wasn't imprisoned. Not yet, he was just removed. Cersei sent a bottle of wine to his quarters that evening. It arrived with a single note. "You tried, he didn't drink it." Outside, Melisandre's pyres burned higher. She had won. And somewhere in the darkness beneath the Red Keep, Varys whispered to the wind, the realm was never meant to survive peace. In the north, Robb Stark received word that his father had been stripped of power. He stood in the great hall of Winterfell reading the Raven twice. Then he turned to his men. "Summon the bannermen. No more waiting. No more silence." The wolf had woken, and in King's Landing, Arya stood atop the bell tower, watching, waiting, and, whispering a name she had not spoken aloud since her journey, began Melisandre, because fire was consuming everything, and she knew the only thing that could kill it was death. That could kill it was death. The flames from the square lit the walls of the Red Keep, like sunset had come early and cruel. They danced on banners, curled around statues, and painted shadows across the faces of men who were supposed to protect the realm. But there was no protection anymore. Only obedience, and silence, and fire. Ned stood at the window of his former chambers, no longer Hand, no longer respected, barely even watched. Melisandre had not imprisoned him. That would have made him a martyr. Instead, she had ignored him. She had cast him aside like a husk, a name that no longer mattered and that was worse. Below, the streets moaned. The Red Priests had begun open sermons. Children starved while lords debated prophecy. The Iron Bank had stopped lending. The Tyrells had withdrawn their envoys. The realm wasn't at war. It was rotting from the inside. He watched it and knew this was his fault. He had spared Cersei, made peace, delayed bloodshed, protected children. He had tried to outthink war, to contain fire, but all he had done was give it more time to spread. Behind him, a whisper, "You look smaller than you did." Ned turned slowly. Arya. She stood barefoot on the stone floor, cloaked in black, hair chopped short. Her blade, needle, hung loosely at her side, but her hands were steady. "I'm glad you're here," he said. "I'm not," she replied. "I came to say goodbye." His stomach dropped. She stepped closer. "I'm leaving tonight. There's someone I have to kill." He knew who she meant. Of course he did. He sat slowly. "You don't have to do this." "I do," she said without anger. "Because you can't." Ned didn't argue. Because she was right. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw no child left, only loss. Only purpose. Come back to me when it's done, he said. I won't, she whispered. You know that. And then she was gone. The last of his family in King's Landing, gone like a shadow at sunrise. That same night, in the hall of the small council, Stannis sat stiffly on the Iron Throne. He did not speak. Melisandre did. Her voice filled the chamber like smoke. She spoke of signs, of flames, of destiny. We must burn the traitor's sword, she said. We must purge the wolf's blood from the south. Stannis nodded once. The north marches. It was true. Ravens reported that Robb Stark's army was crossing the neck. Frey alliances confirmed. Bolton banners raised. The north had chosen war. And what of the Queen Mother? Someone asked. What of the Lannisters? Melisandre smiled. The lion is already in the trap. Cersei was taken that night. Quietly, without screaming, she had prepared for it. When the Red Priests came, she didn't resist. She poured a final glass of Arbor Red, sat in her chair and waited. She wasn't queen anymore. She wasn't anything. As they dragged her from her chamber, she looked back at the fire. I should have let the wolf tear you apart, she whispered, but the flames didn't listen. She was brought to the square at dawn. No trial, no banners. No Jaime, no Tywin, only fire. Ned heard it from his tower. The people were screaming, some in protest, some in awe, some just hungry. He pushed past guards who didn't bother stopping him. He ran downstairs through corridors until he reached the crowd. There she was, Cersei, kneeling, eyes forward, hair wild. A red priest stood beside her with a torch. Melisandre raised her hands. Queen of lies, she declared. Mother of bastards. Servant of false kings. Let her be unmade in flame. And before anyone could stop it, before a word could be shouted, the pyre was lit. Cersei didn't scream. She laughed. Not for long. Not loudly, but enough to haunt the silence that followed. Ned stood there watching it all, the alliance, the mercy, the attempt at peace, burned to ash. And in that moment something inside him, the last thread of the man who believed in honor, snapped. He didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't even look away. He simply turned and walked straight to the dungeons. The guards let him pass. Whether they were afraid or loyal no longer mattered. He was still Eddard Stark. In the last cell in the farthest corner, a boy sat in chains, Joffrey. Dirty, bitter, still angry. You came to gloat? He hissed. Ned said nothing. You think you've won? Joffrey spat. You're nothing. I'll return. They'll beg for me. Ned stepped closer. I came to end it. Joffrey laughed. What, you're going to kill me? Stannis would thank you. No, Ned said. Stannis will find you dead by dawn. But he won't know who did it. No one will, Joffrey stopped laughing. Wait, no, you wouldn't. But Ned was already kneeling. He drew a blade, not ice, that was gone, but this one would do. You killed my friend, Ned said softly. You beat my daughter. You destroyed my family, and I let you live. I thought mercy would stop the fire. Joffrey's voice cracked. No, please, Ned didn't say the words, he just did it. Quiet, cold, done. He left the body where it lay. By the time Stannis found it, there was no message. No threat, just silence. Melisandre said nothing, but her eyes watched. Ned differently after that. She had seen something in him now, something worse than rebellion, conviction. The North kept marching, and this time, the South didn't stop them. Stannis held the throne, but the city turned colder. The fires kept burning. But fewer watched. The faith stayed silent. The Riverlands split again, and in the shadows, the people began whispering again, not of prophecy, not of kings, but of the wolf, the one who walked among. Fire and didn't burn. They said Arya Stark was death. They said Ned Stark was fury. They said the North was coming, not to reclaim power, but to bury it by winter's end. The streets of King's Landing were empty. By spring, Melisandre vanished. By summer, the Iron Throne sat cold, and no one remembered the peace that almost was, only the fire that devoured it. The man who tried to stop the storm had only delayed it, and when it finally came, it drowned them all. It drowned them all.